We will. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm very excited I feel like I've seen you. I know the place. I feel like I'm back with you in Grand Rapids, and I know that you're with us in heart. And for people who don't know me, I'm Shlomit Myers. I'm a secular rabbi. I'm from Indore, and I co-chair the committee here for the partnership with you, with Grand Rapids. And I want to say shalom to everyone. Good afternoon to those of you in Grand Rapids, and good evening to the people of Indore and the partnership in Central Galilee. These are difficult days for us. They're filled with sadness and worry and anxiety. These challenging times have been a central part of our lives for almost a year now, starting from October 7th. I invite us to take a second, to make room in our thoughts for the sadness and grief that is part of our life every day, so that we can also see the good around us. Every day, new names, faces join the list of lost ones, and our hearts are broken. We are in the days of the month of Elul, days that, according to Jewish tradition, are a time of awakening, a renewed examination of what is important to us, improving our lives and the lives of our loved ones, so that we can welcome the new year and Rosh Hashanah with strength and optimism for a better year. I want to thank you for the partnership, for the love and care that we get all the time. All of these give us great strength to get through these tough days, and we will continue to support each other with hope, tikva, and deeds, maasim, for peace and for a better life in the coming year. I want to thank the Indore Museum, which brings us together with the stories of 5 artists during days when a home has become something so precious. Thank you to all the organizers and participants of this occasion. I know that even though we're seeing each other through Zoom and at computer screens, we share and feel love and support. Thank you.
Okay. Am I up? Is it my turn now? Let's see.
At the floor.
All right. Can you see this now?
Yeah, we can see you.
See you. See you.
Oh, you see me.
Yeah,
Okay, hold on.
That's what you're trying to do, yo.
I gotta do this other one. This one. What do you see now?
You look good.
Come on for the rest.
See those?
No.
Make them all. They should have the shares or something. There you go. There you go. Now your
Now you
PowerPoint
see
is
them?
up. Yep, there you go.
Tamar for the rescue. Lucky we have Tamar here for the rescue. All right, let me just move this up a little bit. All right, first of all, thank you all for this incredible opportunity to speak and to share a little bit about one of my favorite things, Israel's cultural mosaic. I heard a little bit about, you were talking about my background. I have a strong connection with Grand Rapids. Hi, Mom. I can see that I can see that families come out to support, and as you may know, also my brother is there. So this is a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to speak with you all and to share a little bit about my passion as an anthropologist about Israel's cultural mosaic. So without further ado, hopefully you can see that I just switched slides. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So we're in business. All right, look at the map here on the left. I want to start with that. People who've been on my tours know that I'll often start with this map. This is called the cloverleaf map. And what it shows you is that Israel is located at the crossroads of the 3 old world continents. Israel has always been a very multicultural place. And this map, which has Jerusalem in the center of it, shows you the centrality of Jerusalem because as you can tell by this map, Israel is a land bridge between the old world continents. What do I mean by a land bridge? I mean that before there were airplanes or ships and people had to hoof it and walk from one place to another, the only way to go from Africa to Europe or from Asia to Africa meant that you crossed through the land of Israel. There was really no other choice. That was the only point where everything is connected. And this map is trying to show that to you. And in addition to that, you can see on the right side of the map, there's a little red blotch in the ocean. That's the Red Sea. And on the other side is the Mediterranean Sea. It's also the shortest distance between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. Hence, it was also a sea bridge. So we have this land bridge and a sea bridge. And so if you look at it this way, you can put it differently as X marks the spot. And already in Torah, we have examples that show us that this was a very central place. We have evidence of long distance trade routes and a grasp of geography that includes no fewer than 70 nations. And we have goods, items that were discovered that were involved. For example, like the first one here that I mentioned is cassia, which is a spice. That was one of the spices that needed to be used in the temple service. And the only place you would get cassia would be India or Southeast Asia, meaning that there were ties with these places where they could get goods from that place to Israel. 2 years ago, while doing an excavation at the city of David, they found jugs of spiced wine from the level of the destruction from 600 BCE. And inside the residue of the spiced wine, they found vanilla. This is unbelievable because vanilla supposedly only arrived from the New World around 1600. And here we have something 2,200 years prior to that, and it comes from Mexico. So there's some kind of trade networks that we may not yet know anything about. And another example of Israel's centrality is that there were many loan words in Hebrew from other languages. For example, the word kuf, monkey, or tuki, parrot, tavas, peacock. All of these are South Indian words. And it makes sense because they don't exist in Israel. And so they must have seen them somewhere and brought the words back with them. Another thing that comes from South India is the musical instrument kinar, which is a type of, it's kind of like a mandolin or something like that, or a small harp too. And that's where we get the word Kinneret in Hebrew, which is the name for the Sea of Galilee. It's from this Indian instrument. There are other examples as well. We have the famous example from the New Testament. So this is a later example from the miracle of Pentecost, where the disciples begin to speak in tongues. And when they speak in tongues, they go out into the street and they meet people from Parthia, from Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, Libya, Cyrene, Cretans, Arabs, and Romans. This was all in Jerusalem in the first century, meaning people were coming from all different directions because of its centrality. So that's the first thing that people need to remember. And there's a lot more to be said about this, but that's a whole other lecture. But we'll start with this base, that it's a very central place. So again, location, location, location. Now, because it's a central place, we have to remember that a lot of people are passing through here. So there's an African proverb, which is attributed to the Gikuyu tribe in Kenya, which says, when elephants play, the grass gets trampled. Well, since Israel was the land bridge and such a central one, there have been many elephants over the years. And each group of people that have chosen to stay have developed their own techniques of conquest. For example, we can even begin with the Jews. When they arrive, they meet the Canaanites and they battle them under the leadership of Joshua. And in some places they win and take over cities, and in other places they reach an agreement, an accommodation with the Canaanites who are there. And the same happens later with the Philistines. There's warfare, but also in accommodation. And they live side by side. They don't actually always get along, but they live side by side. Kind of familiar to our situation today. Other empires took a different tack when it came to their imperialism. And if we look, for example, at the Assyrian and Babylonian examples, the Assyrians arrive in the 8th century, the Babylonians arrive in the 6th century BCE, and they have their own unique ways of conquest. What their specialty is population transfers. They transfer people from one place to another place, and they transfer the people from that place to the first place, back and forth like this. This is the story, in fact, of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, right? The state of Israel in the northern part of the country is defeated by the Assyrians, and they're carted off. And instead of them, they bring Samaritans, some of whom are still here. There's about 800 Samaritans left. And they do this population exchange. And it works because people are separated from their land, and then they begin to assimilate to wherever they go. The Babylonians try the same thing, and they move the Judeans to Babylon. That's where we get the famous psalm, right? Psalm 137, which says, "By the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept as we remembered Zion," right? Only in this case, it lasted 70 years. After the temple was destroyed, they were allowed to return, thanks to the assistance of Cyrus the Great, the Persian leader who defeats the Babylonians. When the Greeks arrive, they have a whole other system. They want to Hellenize people. They're interested in actively promoting their culture, and they're trying to create an assimilation. And we know what the result of that attempt is. That's the story of Hanukkah. That's the Jewish rejection of Hellenism. And that's what the Hanukkah story is really about. After the Greeks are defeated, the Romans come in. And the Romans, they don't care if you become Roman or not. What is the guiding principle of the Romans? Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. In other words, as long as you pay homage to Roman rule and its emperors, that's all they care about. They don't care about what you practice, your tradition, your religion, as long as you show deference. Of course, there are incentives to becoming a citizen, but if you're not, that's fine as long as you're paying your taxes. And that's the way the Romans ruled such a large empire. Under Christian and Muslim rule, which comes after the Roman rule, there was a lot of pressure to accept the new faiths, the new traditions. There were a lot of incentives to convert, but it was possible to continue also as a Jew if you wanted to. And this brings us to the last 500 years, the period in the last 500 years since the Turkish invasion, followed by the British and now independent state of Israel. And I want to look at how it's been dealt with, this issue of conquest over the past 500 years and what it has to say about Israel today. So we have over here the Ottoman Empire on the left. The Ottoman Turks capture the land of Israel in the year 1516 and are only dislodged by the British in 1918 during World War I. Okay? The Ottomans institute a system called the millet system. Not millet in the sense of like a grain. It was actually pronounced milliyet in Turkish, but in English it comes off as millet system. Millet is from the Arabic word which means millah. Millah means, the Arabic word millah, which means a nation. And the system, the way it works is it gave ethno-linguistic and religious groups certain rights, right? It was a type of religious pluralism and non-territorial autonomy. What I mean by that is it allowed recognized groups, and I'll open all this up anyways, it allowed recognized groups to set their own laws, and they could even collect taxes separate from state taxes. They had and maintained their own schools, their own churches or synagogues, and their own hospitals, meaning the taxes, education, life cycle events, legal, religious affairs were all administered by the community's leaders. Okay, so they were living in the Ottoman Empire. They had to show loyalty to the empire. And there were types of cases like murder that would be tried at the Ottoman level, but otherwise life cycle events, legal, religious affairs were administered by the communities themselves. So you have this kind of non-territorial autonomy that developed. They had to show loyalty to the emperor. They were to the sultan in this case. They were second-class citizens. They were barred from being part of the Ottoman elite, but they had certain rights. And every confessional community could be ruled under its own personal law. By that I mean, if you're Muslim, you're ruled by Sharia law. And if you're Jewish, halakha. And if you're a Christian, then the Christian canon, etc. And this developed kind of naturally starting in the 18th century. Originally, only Jews, Greeks, Greek Orthodox, and Armenians were eligible for this system. And it was based on this idea that exists in Islam of dhimmis. Dhimmis are kind of, they're not Muslims, but they believe in one God, and so they have certain rights within the Islamic system. And they're minorities who can exist under Islamic rule. They don't have to convert, though they're encouraged to because they pay more taxes. The system worked for a long period of time until the 19th century, when it began to be undermined by the idea of nationalism, which is a product of the 19th century, and ideas of equality, which come out of the French Revolution, right? This is kind of a separate but equal system. And this becomes a problem beginning with the French Revolution. That said, there are aspects of this which continue to this day and exist in many countries, such as Iraq, Syria, Egypt, Jordan, Greece, even Lebanon. And as you'll see in a minute, more than anywhere else, it continues to this day in Israel. So what is the Israeli millet system? Another way to think of the millet system is that this is a type of legal pluralism. There's more than one kind of normative order in the country, meaning that there's more than one socio-legal space. This is very weird for people who, live in a country and there are the laws of the country. In this case, there are many different types of laws within one country, and each community has its own laws. It's based on this idea of a polyethnic state, and it was embraced by the British during the mandatory period. They continued it. This goes against this idea of a melting pot. The idea is that it's a polyethnic state. Everyone is doing its own thing. There's no assimilation happening. The problem is that not everybody was recognized under the system. So, for example, the Druze. The Druze are a religion that came out of Shia Islam. And for Muslims, they were seen as takfiris, meaning that they were apostates, and hence they didn't fit under this system. They didn't have rights. The same is true of the Baha'i. They also came out of Shia, but in a different place, the Druze in Egypt, the Baha'i in Persia. And because they came out of Islam and the Baha'is don't consider themselves Muslim anymore, they weren't granted rights under the millet system. And another group you see here, evangelical Episcopal, were seen as apostates by the Roman Catholic and the Orthodox. And so since the majority of Christians in the Middle East are either Roman Catholic or Orthodox, Greek Orthodox or other, they lobbied the Ottomans not to allow Protestants to have rights under the millet system, okay? Today in Israel, there are 14 communities, and it's problematic because some of these communities, we'll see in a minute. For example, the Orthodox Jews are recognized under this system because the system goes back to the Turkish times when there was this predates reform and conservative movements, and it continued through the British period into modern Israel. And so only Orthodox Jews are recognized, and only they can perform marriages in Israel under this system. That's why they're the only ones who are allowed to perform marriages in Israel that are recognized by the state, right? Another problem with this system is that you might only ethnically, secularly Jewish, you're not Orthodox Jew, and yet you get categorized within that group of people, even though you don't recognize yourself as being one of that group. And there you have problems as well. Okay? The most important thing to remember is that there are 14 communities. They're recognized in life cycle matters such as marriage, divorce, succession, alimony, wills, guardianship. So it does impact people's lives greatly. There are a lot of non-religious Jews who marry under the rabbinate, and then when they want a divorce, they have to get divorced under the rabbinate because the millet system doesn't have any other option. They're not Muslims, they're not Christian, there is no state version. These things happen within the different legal courts for these different traditions. So what are these different groups? Here's the list. The first 11 that you see here are the ones that existed when the British arrived in 1918. And the last 3 were added since 1948, okay, under independent Israel. And it's not a very, complete list. You're going to just think, for example, there are no Alawites here, there are no Ahmadis, there are no Arameans, there are no Ethiopian Christians. There are groups, for example, like Chaldeans, who today number maybe 20 in Israel, but used to be a larger community before 1948. They're still on the list, but there are very few of them. And the other ones have been added, and there are others who want to be added, okay? And there are also ethnic groups that are missing here, like Gypsies, or maybe Sephardi, Ashkenazi might come in someplace. The point is there are 14 communities, and that's a lot of diversity as it is, but it doesn't cover the whole picture. That said, we can take any corner of Israel, and I think we'll be able to dig up interesting groups and subgroups. But since we're here in Ein Dor, I thought it would be fun to do this and look what's right here around the corner from us, from Ein Dor, where we are right now. And so where is Ein Dor? That's the first question. If you know a map of Israel, you can see on the left the Mediterranean Sea, in the north is Lebanon, on the right is, the right upper quadrant is the Golan Heights and the Sea of Galilee. And Ein Dor is sitting there. You can see it's kind of equidistant from the Jordan River, from Tiberias, from Nazareth, from Afula, from Beit Shan. These are all kind of secondary cities in Israel. And if you look at the map, you can kind of see that even though there was once an important road that passed by here, that we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. I hope my hosts don't mind me saying so, but historically it's kind of been in the middle of nowhere. And yet, when we look at a map and we zoom in and we look closer, and we see this map, we'll see that a lot of interesting things that come up. First of all, it's important to note that this has been a very important Christian corner of the country. And by that, I mean, it's an important part of the country for Christians. The crosses that you see here are in Nazareth, Kafar Kana, and Mount Tabor. And that means the Church of the Annunciation in Nazareth, the wedding church in Cana, where Jesus performs the miracle of turning water into wine. And the Mount Tabor is where the Transfiguration, where Jesus turns into a ball of light. That's where that happens, and that's very close to where we are. And then we'll look at Muslim communities, and we see that there are many Muslim communities in this area. Iksal, Daburiya, Mashhad, Shibli, Al-Ghanim, Kafr Misr we'll talk about in a little bit. And we have Jewish communities as well. And the purple one down there is Ein Dor. So we have a lot of Jewish communities in this vicinity as well. And that goes back to biblical times. We have biblical stories that have to do with Deborah and battles here. And there's also the story in Ein Dor itself of the witch of Ein Dor. So, and we have a modern story here of kibbutzim and moshavim, which are most of these Jewish stars are kibbutzes and moshavs. Historically, we even had here where the X is, there used to be a village up until 1948 of Algerians. And if we look at the little arrow top left, we have a community of descendants of Subotniks. Subbotniks were Russian Orthodox who decided to keep the Sabbath and instead of Sunday on Saturday. And some of them converted to Judaism and made Aliyah over 100 years ago. And some of their descendants still live in Ilania. You can go there and actually learn about them. If I were to widen this up a little bit more, we would see Druze communities and many other kinds of communities. But I want to focus on 3 communities. First of all, I want you to see the mountain that just appeared. That's that's Kfar Kama. Then we have the 2 camels. Those are Bedouin communities. And we have this pyramid at the bottom near Kafr Misr. So I want to look at these 3 communities in particular. Let's start out with Kfar Kama. Kfar Kama is a Circassian, as we say in Israel, we call them Cherkesim, Circassian community, but they don't call themselves that. Their endonym is Adige, and it means the people who live in high places, okay? There are 2 villages in Israel that are Circassian. One is called Kfar Kama, which is near us, and the other one is called Rehania, and it's closer to the Lebanese border. But in the past, there were more Circassian communities. In fact, Hadera, a coastal town, Hadera, maybe some of you have been there, was founded originally by Circassians, but abandoned due to malaria. And if anybody's heard of the capital of Jordan, Amman, it was the modern version of it, was founded by Circassians. So how did Circassians who come from the northwest of the Caucasus region, how did they end up here? I mean, they lived in the Northwest Caucasus. They lived in a confederation of 12 tribes. And what happened was they were survivors of a genocide that was carried out on them by the Russian Empire. And they fought the Russians for about 100 years. But from 1860 to 1864, just as the Civil War was happening in the United States, the Russians went for broke, and about 1 million Adige, Circassians, escaped from their homeland, or ran away from their homeland is a better way to put it, and made it to the Ottoman Empire. Originally, Circassians were pagan in their belief system, but then they accepted Christianity. And in the 18th and 19th century, they converted to Islam because they thought that if they would convert to Islam, that maybe the Turks would help them to fight the Russians. They remained Muslim, and when they arrived in the Ottoman Empire, they were spread around because they were warriors. As you can see from this photograph on the left, this I took here at Kfar Kama, they have these canisters for bullets, for gunpowder in the special clothes that they wore. They were fierce fighters, and so the Ottomans settled them in this area because there wasn't much governance around here. And in 1878, they arrived here, and they established Kfar Kama, and their purpose was to pacify the Bedouin. Ironically, by accomplishing this goal, they ensured that the area was safe for Jewish settlement, because many Jews came into the area and no other Circassians arrived. In 1948, they fought together with the IDF against the Palestinians, and they're the only Muslim group that is conscripted into the military. Of course, the Druze are also drafted, but the Druze are not exactly Muslim. Here we're talking about Sunni Muslims who are drafted, who requested to be conscripted, and they're very devoted soldiers. And one of the reasons is because they say all the time that they plan to return home to liberate their homeland, and army service in Israel is preparation for that day. You can see here on the left from the photo, this person is dancing, right? Dancing is an integral part of Circassian culture. From the age of 3 or 4, they start teaching boys and girls to dance. Every Circassian is expected to know how to dance the traditional Circassian dance. It's part of their culture. Other cultural things that they do, which are interesting, is traditionally they used to kidnap brides, what's called marriage by capture. Today, they still do a ceremony where they pretend to do it. So it's become ritualized, but it was part of their tradition that a real man would kidnap a woman to become his wife, marriage by capture. Other cultures do this as well. In terms of their language, it's very unique. They maintain the language. They have over 50 consonants. the language with the most consonants, over 50 of them in their language, and a lot of like onomatopoeia type words. Lastly, I should note that in 2022, Kfar Kama was recognized by the UN as a tourist village. It's the only one of its kind in Israel. And it's very, very beautiful place, and everyone should go visit it. All right, we have two more of these. I showed you those camels earlier. We have these Bedouin villages of Shibli and Umel Ghanem or Ghanem, which means mother of sheep. They share a joint municipality, even though they're different groups. The Bedouin are a group that consider themselves to be the original inhabitants of the Middle East. They think of themselves as the real Arabs. All the other ones that you might see, like Arafat or Abu Mazen, they're not really Arabs. They came later. They worked the land. The real Arabs, from a Bedouin perspective, were the ones who were here before, who were nomadic. They lived in an extreme ecological niche, and they lived in a tribal system. And they were all over Israel, from the Negev all the way up to Lebanon. There are Bedouin, but there's a huge difference between the Bedouin who live in this area in the north and the ones in the south. There are two main differences. First of all, though it may not seem this way to, even Israelis are surprised to learn this, but this area where we are gets almost as much rain on average per year as London. Okay, the Galilee, most of the Galilee, when it's 550 to 600 millimeters of rain a year, it's about what you get in London in a year. Only here it happens in a few months. So they do practice agriculture, and they don't just follow their herds around. They have farmsteads, and they follow their herds around in a specific area. We call this in anthropology transhumance. The groups here in the north were settled by the British already after World War I. And what we have in the north, unlike the south, is we have splinters of tribes. We have over 50 tribes represented in the Galilee and only about 4 in the Negev. And the reason for that is that most of the tribes that arrived here were escaping blood feuds. So there would be small clans that showed up here, and then they would join with others and create a village, but they're all from different groupings, different clans, different tribes. The people of Shibli, interestingly enough, volunteer in high numbers to the IDF, to the Israeli Defense Forces. Even though they're not conscripted, even though they're Muslim, many of them either serve in the prison service or have served in the military. So that's something also interesting about the village that we have close to us here. And the last group, which is the closest to Ein Dor, is Kafar Misri. And Kafar Misri comes from the word Masri, which means Egyptian in Arabic. Very few people, even in Israel, realize that in the 19th century, the biggest immigration into the land of Israel was not Jews. It was actually Egyptians, Egyptian Muslims who entered here in the 19th centuries. And the estimates range from between 40 to 90,000 Egyptians, and perhaps even more. This happens during the period of the rule of the guy you see here on your left. This is Muhammad Ali. And the reason so many Egyptians came here is because they were escaping high taxes, conscription, and corvée labor, meaning they were forced to work for a certain number of days without pay. Muhammad Ali's son, Ibrahim Pasha, even invaded this part of the Ottoman Empire between 1831 and 1840. And when the Egyptians were defeated by the French and the British, who helped the Ottomans, most of the soldiers decided to stay here and not go back to Egypt. And so the village we have next door, it's called the Egyptian village. So there's no real, mystery about where they're from. They established a city or a town, and they called it the Egyptian village. And these were probably soldiers or hangers-on in the campaign who decided to stay. And the reason that they decided to stay was because the Ottomans needed people here, and they gave them land for free. And so that was another incentive. And this immigration continued until 1948. And they've been quite successful. I'll show you a couple of interesting people here on the left. Top left, you have Munib al-Masri. He's one of the richest Palestinians alive today. He was a good friend of Arafat. He has this huge home, 70 acres overlooking Nablus, where he's from. And underneath, we have Bashar al-Masri again, the Egyptian. He's the founder of the city, Rawabi, that you can see behind him, the first Palestinian planned city. And another al-Masri who was famous was Taher al-Masri from Jordan, who was the prime minister of Jordan, because there were also Egyptians there. And I put this old map of Jaffa from 1878 here, because we have this thing that's written above the word Jaffa, which says Saknet al-Musriya, which means the abode of the Egyptians. And what it's referring to is the farmland to the right of that. That farmland is what became Ahuzat Bait, which is the original name of a city that you all know as Tel Aviv. So the original Tel Aviv was built on the lands of Egyptians who arrived here in the 19th century and sold those lands, which became Tel Aviv. So that's an interesting little connection. All right, in conclusion, we've really only scratched the surface here, but I want to point out, I hope that what you saw from this is that we've got this very polyethnic environment. And we've got a centrality, uniqueness, and diversity in Israel for many groups and traditions. This polyethnic environment is opposed to the US ideal of a melting pot. What we have instead is what I would call like a tali plate, as you can see on the left here. Everyone's on one big plate, but everyone's in their own little bowls. Sometimes they might mix here and there, but in general, they're all stovepipe. They're vertically divided. In anthropology, like I said, we call it a vertical division. Each one has their schools, their scout movements, their political parties, their own media, ecosystems, etc. Secondly, there are a lot of cross currents in Israeli society. America is polarized, which means there are two sides. Israel, we have more than two sides. It's like playing chess on a couple levels. And we have all these different groups. In a sense, I mean, just imagine like, every election here, how many political parties run. There are a lot of cross currents across race, politics, ethnicity, etc. And third, which is the last thing, is that I think that Israel is really a really beautiful and unique place. The Ottoman Empire in general was a very culturally diverse area. There were Greeks and Armenians, Assyrians and Chaldeans, and there were Jews throughout all these different countries. And today that barely exists anymore anywhere. The only place you can actually find that anywhere in the Middle East is Israel, which is what makes Israel so special, which is why we need to safeguard and celebrate Israel, which is why this exhibit that was organized here at Ein Dor, the Tales of Home exhibit, is really such an important endeavor. And so let's celebrate and safeguard these different communities. And the last thing is just my business card here. If anybody's interested, when tourism gears up again, if you're interested, I specialize in tours to these minority communities where you can talk to local people over a home-cooked meal. You can check out my website, peoplenotplaces.tours, and contact me if you're interested in me speaking on any topics. Thank you again for inviting me. It's been a real honor. I appreciate it. That's it.
Way out.
Okay, I hear you now.
Okay, so we are going to transition now. First, Dayal, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I wish I could take a semester-long class with you. So much more to learn. We'll have time for questions at the end. But what I'd like to do now is give people a chance to just, stretch your legs, get some dessert, some more food. While you're doing that, we're going to keep us moving. We also have here Tamar Shuval. And I believe Gali is here as well, who is the curator of the exhibit at the museum. And we're going to hear from them about the actual exhibit that Eyal just mentioned, and continue to celebrate the diversity and the coexistence that's happening in Israel that often doesn't get in the news enough. So I'll turn it over to you, Tamar. And again, please, if you need to get some more food, please do. And we look forward to hearing this next part of our program here.
Thank you, Marnie. So Marnie, you will let me know after the short stop, short break.
Let's just give 1 minute here.
Yeah, sure. So just let me know when the break is up.
I think we're just going to do a shorter break. So 30 seconds. 60 seconds, but now it's cookies. Yeah.
Hey, Jack. Good to see you. Everybody doing good? How are you? You look good. Enjoy the summer, I hope. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is, That'd be great.
Mark, can you hear us loud and clear?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
we
you're
can
ready to
start?
begin whenever you like.
Okay. So hello everyone. It's nice seeing you, even if it's through the screen. Gali will be with us in just a second. My name is Tamar Shuval. I'm the director and curator of Endor Museum, and I came to Grand Rapids a year ago, almost a year and a half ago. So, you know, I can see Temple Emmanuel behind you, and it's like I feel at home. And I wanted to say that in these difficult and painful days, I'm really so grateful for the opportunity to pause and gather together, even if virtually, and focus on what unites rather than what divides. The Tales of Home exhibition gave me and all of us this opportunity. When Gali Kedar, that will speak after me, came to me about a year ago with the idea of organizing an exhibition that connects women from the Galil, it sounds amazing and inspiring. Shortly after, the reality of October 7th hit us all. Once we partially emerged from the initial shock, we raised our heads, and it became clear to us that the show must go on. And sorry, that the show must go on, and that if we don't invest ourselves in action and in culture, we are truly defeated. We gathered to brainstorm about the exhibition, but this time it was clear that the focus was not only on women, but also on the concept of home. It's different and similar interpretations. What makes it unique and what unites us in this idea. And so we set off, Gali Kedar, Adi Nissenbaum, the curators, and I, and decided that the exhibition would center on women and on the pivotal role each one plays in her home, in building it, maintaining it, and picking up the pieces when it breaks. As has happened and is happening to us now in this really cursed war. So I want to thank Gali and Adi and the wonderful artists who created together an exhibition that is much more than just another art exhibition. It is a powerful feminine connection that provides strength and inspiration. So I really hope that you get the sense of it through the video that we made. But before that, I want you all to meet Gali, which she's very, very, very anxious. And it's fine.
Hello.
Yeah, so Gali.
Hello, everyone. So I wrote some words about the exhibition and about the work that I did. It all became with the Galilee. The Galilee became a home in my heart. I don't live there, so it's just in my heart. I spent there many days working, exploring, getting to know places and mainly people from many villages and societies. Over my work, I met women from a variety of worlds who have come a long way and not always easy until they build their unique art path. The exhibition was born out of a desire to connect artistic women from different cultures and religions. I wanted to connect artistic women through their eyes over the idea of what is home for them, what connects and what is the difference between them. One of the main questions that arise is how the story of life and the society around each artist reflect in their work. How does it change from an artist to another, from society to society? Between the line of the work emerge also pain, frustration, and question about identity and belonging. 5 artists exhibiting in our exhibition, which may I say extremely magnificent women, who belong to 5 different communities, cultures, religions, and villages. Each one unique in her art and in her heart also. Ola Zaytun from Kfar Kana, and Eyal told about Kfar Kana. It's Nasrin Zair el-Din from Druze village, Daliat el-Carmel. Nibal Shapso from the Circassian village, Richania. Hitam Hibi from the village Shab, and Stav Rosenthal from Kibbutz Ashdot Yaakov. The space which we have in the museum representing the Galilee. It divides to 5 spaces. Each space represents the home of each artist. Through her work and items she chose, she gives her interpretation for home, the inner and outer home. They tell the home about its complicity, its simplicity, and its absence. These days in Israel, the concept of home is no longer taken for granted. Many of the inhabitants of the Galilee are not in their homes, and for many, it's mainly a longing to the life they had. We saw a great privilege in giving a voice and stage to artists from different societies out of a desire to create an exhibition together. We as a society and as individuals need to get to know this collective house. We must know the differences and respect it. For the sake of living together on the same land, we must combine it to one home. Something for the Galilee, between all of the people connects a thin thread that creates one delicate human fabric that is so special to the Galilee. So thank you for listening, and I hope you will enjoy also the video that we did.
My photographs are staged and deal with the concept of home and my personal and social life as a woman and as an artist. Operating from a complex position as a Druze woman in a conservative society, I feel restricted in my freedom of expression. Often in my work, I create a staged environment, and in the series of photographs presented here, I display my private home surrounded by my belongings. Despite the personal connection, the themes I explore within my home are abstract and broad, encompassing religion, family, gender, and the roles and positioning of women in society. In my realistic and humorous artistic approach, I try to convey hints and ideas about my personal life, my opinions, and my beliefs. My work is influenced by the past and present, by memories, longings, belonging, hopes, and fears. I was born and raised in Kibbutz Ashdod Yaakov Ehud. Nature and the land have always been an inseparable part of my life and have been my inspiration ever since I began sculpting in clay. After studying art in various institutions, without finding exactly what I was looking for, I settled near my birthplace, a decision that perhaps corresponds to Jung's hero's journey. There, I established my own studio, where I could create what I was searching for, the seam that connects practicality and art. The historical spirit inherent in the land, which I always longed for, and the constant inner contemplation, along with my working techniques, all these aspects fuel my artworks. The works displayed in the room are part of a series based on stories and existential descriptions of the human experience, both personal and universal, and shared archetypes. I began this series during a period in my life when I did not have a real home of my own, but I decided to create something that symbolized a home to me. The jar, a primary domestic container. The jar served as an inverted container for me to hold my stories, a sort of diary of experiences, memories, and interpretations of both painful and pleasant emotions. I was born in the village of Abu Snan in the Western Galilee. For years, I dreamt of studying art, but due to financial difficulties at home, I left my studies at a young age and went to work to support my family, where I also met my husband. After getting married, I moved to live in the village of Sha'ab, where my 4 children and granddaughter were born. I never knew I was good at art and hadn't tried painting until my daughter went to 1st grade, and I drew a picture for her school that received many compliments. The desire to continue creating never ceased. As my children grew older, and despite many difficulties and a strong desire on my part that never waned, I set out to fulfill my dream of studying art at the Galilee College in Saknin. Because art is my means of expression, I not only create, but also work as an art teacher for at-risk youth, in senior citizen clubs and youth clubs. Even my house, the House of Mashrabiyah, which I built in the new neighborhood of the village, is part of fulfilling my dream. My works tell my story, my connection to my family, my mother and father, my relationships with my heritage, and my feelings about my place as a woman in a traditional society.
Home is a place where you feel loved, especially by family members. The home I loved most and felt safest in was my grandparents' house in Kfar Perhaps because there I was not under scrutiny, or perhaps because I experienced loss in my childhood when my uncle was murdered by terrorists in my village of Rehania, a tragic event that caused me to lose my sense of security in my village. But at Grandma's house, I always felt at home. I can still smell the scents of her kitchen, the cheese she made and dried in the sun on the window overlooking the yard with the chickens, and the smell of toasted sesame, susamsho. From the moment we arrived from Rehania, I would rush to the turquoise cupboard behind the door, take out the sour cheese from the refrigerator with the large handle, and spread it on the bread she made in the yard. During my visit to Grandma, who lived in the heart of the village, right across from the mosque, I loved to wander the alleys. I was very curious about the construction, the thick beams, the small doors, the low windows, and the walls of the houses. As I walked among the houses, I wondered who lived in it. Today, I paint the alleys of Farkama, the houses, the food, and the memories from my family.
In Christianity, family is paramount. In my village, familial ties are inherent, somewhat akin to a tribal system where every individual has a familial affiliation belonging to the tribe. For me, this familial belonging is what home means. I live and create my art in my parents' house. For me, the word home is always tied to family, to the pivotal people in my life, and to the foundational relationships in my system. Home is supposed to protect me from various dangers and is a crucial factor in emotional growth and personal development. The sense of security and belonging can be seen in my artwork. I address the concept of home in my works. Home furniture arranged into small, artificially lit living rooms. The living room is concealed in a drawer, partially visible and partially not. The living rooms depicted in my work reflect my stance as an artist. I live within the home, yet I also observe from outside the world, hidden within the drawer. This duality exists in my relationships with the people and women around me, within the secure and safe home, but also in encounters with the outside world.
Thank you for that amazing video. Thank you to the artists and to those who put it together. I'm going to open us up for questions. We have some time to ask questions of anyone on the screen. I think, yeah, we'll here.
system that we have is very close to you, but not necessarily to them. Their microphone is at the TV. If you're close to the TV, you can just say words, any questions to the TV. Otherwise, reject your question. Asking questions, people. Hey, Tamar, can you hear us loud and clear?
Not loud and clear, but I can hear you.
Microphone. To anyone who might have a question. I'll start. I'm curious about how things since October 7th have affected the relationships between Jewish communities, Muslim communities, Christians, your cases, you know, all of the different communities in your region.
Wow. Like the biggest question, I guess. But I'll say maybe I'll address it like in two different views, because looking at here in the Galil, in our region, and in our little bubble, and it really feels like a bubble. The first week of the war, I mean, after October 7th, was really a great shock, and people here was afraid going outside the house. I mean, even though we don't have alarms here or bombing here at Futfu, knock on wood. But I mean, it's pretty quiet here in the region, but still, people just didn't know how to react and what to do. And at first, everyone was afraid. Everyone. I mean, Jews were afraid of Arabs, and Arabs were afraid of Jews, and the Druze, they served the army and were part of the fighting, and we had many losses, I mean, of everyone. So it's, again, first week was, we didn't know what to do, but I felt like after a week or so, people started, to lift their heads and to look around and to say, okay, we are, again, in our region, a place that is so multicultural and working together and living together. So we have to look around and, see how we can reconnect. And, for me, here in the museum, and the director of the museum, that really deals a lot with shared societies, and we have a lot of programs and everything. We just, set like a message or a voice all around, and we said, if we want to connect, if you want to talk, just that we are here. And everyone just came, and I mean, I'm talking about schools, I'm talking about people, and I'm talking about everyone just came and said, okay, we want to see how we can reconnect. So again, in our little bubble of the Galil, and especially in Lower Galil and the Jezreel Valley, people really wanted to be together. And I think that looking at this exhibition, you can really, this is the answer. This is the true answer, because the artists from all around wanted to come together, wanted to do something that really unite all of us. And around Israel, it started with, okay, let's really unite all of us and unite together. But it was like, let's go unite. And maybe you heard it, the Yachad Nenatzach, together we'll win. But it really raised questions of who is the together, who is the Yachad, who are the people that will unite? Is it only Jews? Is it Jews and Druze and Bedouin that serve the army, or is it everyone? So it's a question that I think in some places it's not answered yet. But looking here at our region, it really gives you hope. Maybe someone else want to answer the question as well.
I must just say that we are taking the exhibition out. We're taking the exhibition to the villages of the artists, and people are coming. So it's not just us, it's also people that want to know and want to meet another people, and to know that, like Tamar said, that there is hope together.
Yeah, Gali means that, I mean, we're having tours that go into the artists' homes. So we went to Kfar Kama, which is Nibal lives in Rechania, but just like you heard in the video, her true house is or her true home is Kfar Kama. So we went to a tour in Kfar Kama, and we are about to set to a tour. In this Shabbat, we're going to a tour to חיטמ's house. חיטם, אנחנו באים לסיור אצלך בבית. And we went to Nasrin's house, or Nasrin's home in Dalit el-Khamis. Shukran, Habibti.
I wanted to ask, how long did it take from when you first started to brainstorm with a few people to finding the women who stepped up and wanted to collaborate and produced what you have now? I was just wondering how long it took.
We couldn't quite hear the question.
How long did it take for you to gather the women who made the art together? Did the idea go out and then the response was fast, or was it a bit of a process to find the artists who participate? Who had participated?
Gali, you want to answer this about?
I didn't hear.
Okay, so I'll start and maybe Gali will continue. The question was about how much time it took us to collect, the artists. I mean, since we start brainstorming around the exhibition and then to collect the artists together. So maybe talk about, I mean, everything started actually with Chitam and Nibal, right?
Yeah. Now, the start was with Chitam and Nibal that I met them. And Nibal is the only Circassian that she artist. So I said I must do for her exhibition. And then I started to understand that there are so many women in these villages in the Galilee that are artists and no one knows them. And the gathering together was something that I said it must be done.
Now, as I in my first words, I say it like short something about it, that really the idea behind the exhibition started before October 7th. I mean, it started with Gali's idea, long before that. I mean, Gali came to me and told me, you don't understand, there is this artist Nibal and this artist Chitam, and Chitam, she's so special, and she's coming from, and you have to see her home, and we went to see her home much earlier than, I mean, before we started to talk about this exhibition. And it really started from both of them. And then when Gali came to me and said, okay, what do you say? Maybe we'll go ahead with it. Then we sat and we said, okay, but we really have to see how it relates to these days and how we're talking about not only the women, which is, again, they're amazing, just being them and their art, but we want to really talk about their place and their pivotal role in the home, in their home. So it's so after, again, it started with Nibal and Chitam, and then we thought we just went to different artists that we know. Stav just, a week before that, she wrote to me by email that she heard about the museum and maybe we can think about something together. And then Adi said, oh, wait, maybe she can be perfect. She can be perfect for this exhibition. And we looked for Ula, and then we actually there was supposed to be a different Druze artist, and then when she couldn't or she couldn't participate, and then we talked with a different artist, a friend of ours, and she said, oh, this artist, Nasrin, she's amazing. You have to meet her. So Gali went through Dalit, straight to Dalit and Carmel to meet Nasrin, and then she said, oh my God, she's perfect for this exhibition. So it was, like like a rolling way, but But then, I mean, it took us about, I don't know, 1.5 months, maybe 2 months to
Yeah,
have them
1 month
all.
and a half.
Yeah.
Who else has questions?
Be shy.
I do have one more question. Me again. I'm wondering, did the artists meet each other? Did they work together at all? Is there any kind of collaboration, or do they just do their own exhibit separate?
Maybe Nibal, you want to answer this? את רוצה לענות, או אולי חיתם? I'll ask in Hebrew and then I will translate if needed. שאלו, חיתם וניבל, אם יש איזו עבודה ביניכן במהלך התערוכה, שכל אחת הביאה את שלה, את האומנות שלה. תציעי ממיוט, ניבל.
אני עבדתי לבד, לא הייתי בקשר עם אף אומנית שהייתה בתערוכה, פשוט זה לא התאפשר גם להיות בקשר, כי פשוט המצב שלנו בצפון ממש מאיים, היו תקופות שאסור לנו לצאת מהכפר גם, שפשוט
רגע,
נעלו את
אני אתרגם. כן.
אוקיי.
Okay, so Nibal says that I mean at first, I mean in the first part, she worked solo. I mean, and each artist worked on her own art, and she said that it's she lives really on the northern border with Lebanon, so she in some days she really couldn't even go out of the house.
Yeah, כן. אבל הדבר הזה גם עזר לי להיות בבית, גם לצייר ולצייר ולצייר, עד שבעצם הרמתי עוד תערוכה בכפר קמא, שקשור גם לנושא הזה, מבלי שאני שמה לב, ושזה המשך לספר בית, וקראתי לזה לתוך הסמטאות, כמו שראיתם, שזה ממש יצא, המשכתי את זה לבד בעצם. בקשר עם גלי ואיתך כמובן, לא בקשר עם שאר האומניות, פשוט זה לא תאפשר.
So Nibal said that, I mean, because she was forced staying at home, it made her really just create more and more and more paintings. So, and actually Nibal, most of the works that are exhibited in our exhibition are new. The rest of the artists brought art that was or pieces that were already existed, and Nibal just started to just make more and more and more, draw and more, and she made so much drawing or artworks that it really made her open another exhibition, like a self-exhibition in Kfar Kama, in the Cherkessian village next to us, and it really talks with our exhibition, and it really delves into the streets of Kfar Kama. And actually, and I'll continue. את רוצה להוסיף עוד משהו, ניבל?
מה שאני רוצה להוסיף זה שהפרויקט הזה מאוד עזר לי לסגור איזה מעגל עם עצמי, מבחינת ברמה האישית, שזה מאוד עזר לי וגרם לי להרגיש ממש טוב. וזהו.
תודה.
אני אמשיך עוד.
So she says that this project and working on the exhibition really helped her to close like a circle and to feel, to express her, to know how to express herself and to just create more and more.
עכשיו אני מתכוונת, כששאלו אותי מה זה בית בשבילי, ישר חשבתי על כפר קמא ולא על ריחניה, כי פשוט המצב פה ממש מאיים. פשוט מבחינה נפשית, מבחינה ברמה אישית, ממש התנתקתי מהכפר. אבל עכשיו אני חושבת לצייר גם על האזור שלנו, כי אזור מאוד יפה, ואני מכבדת את האזור שלנו, את הכפר שלנו, ואת החיים שלי פה, ואני רוצה לעשות את זה. לא רוצה לעזוב.
So Nibal said that really at first when Gali asked her, what is home to you? So she straight ahead thought about Kfar Kama because what she said and what you heard in the video. And she was, a bit disconnected from the place where she lives because of it being like a border area, and so much violent around, and everything so frightening. But now she really like feel ready to start painting Rechania as well, and bringing it back, like feeling the sense of home over there as well. אז תודה ניבל.
Yeah.
And I want to add that that really each artist brought her own art, and they worked separately. But what we did in the exhibition is creating a space for them to meet together. So each one of them brought her own art, and it was separate. But we made it, first of all, like a shared space, and then in all different events that we made, they had the chance to connect. So we had like a gallery talk and this tours around and everything we do, that we do it also in order to connect between them. Gali?
We hope that something will happen between them. They don't need us. Something will happen between them.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be quiet over here, and it will become.
Any other questions? Yeah. We're going to wrap up now, but I just want you to be able to hear us also. First, thank you so much to all of you in Israel, at Endor, and in the Galilee region, and Ayal, where you're from as well. Thank you all for being here. We learned so much. I know around my table, people were leaning over and saying, oh, this is so interesting. This is amazing. So I know that people here are thirsty for hearing from what's happening in Israel, to learn about the creativity and the collaboration and the shared society. We really just are so appreciative of you sharing your good work with us. So thank you all for coming today. We appreciate everyone who helps to organize the program. I want to mention Daphne Kaufman was key in working with Tamar to bring this idea to life. She's not here today, but I just want to acknowledge her. We also thank the Federation staff, Nicole and Evan, for all the behind the scenes help. That delicious lunch was from Evan, so thank you. Thank you to those who baked and brought cookies for our desserts. Thank you to Kyle, our tech guru in the back, for making sure everything works smoothly. Thank you again to Tamar and Shlamit, to Gali and Raphael, everyone who's from the museum, and of course Ayal for sharing that amazing background with us. I'm turn it to Sandy.
Yes, I second everything Marnie said. It was a really fantastic to see it and hear from all of you. And I'm just going to wrap up for today and just remind everyone how much the Federation does for us. Thank you for continuing to support Israel and our Federation. And here's some events coming up that you can put on your calendar. The Federation campaign kickoff and wine tasting is Cascade Country Club on September 26th. Grand Valley Professor Jason Grothmel will present the history of Nazi Germany and the road to the Holocaust on October 22nd at Temple Emanuel. And the author, Mark Oppenheimer, the author of Squirrel Hill, the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting and the soul of the neighborhood, will speak here at Temple Emanuel November 7th. Be in touch with all about those events. And again, thank you so much to our family in Endor, and we love seeing all of you in the CMU Coalition.
One last comment before you leave. You'll notice on the table in front of you, there are some note cards. Eyal mentioned Mount Tabor and some of the area in the Galilee. These photos are actually, I think many or most were taken by Raphael right here. Yep, so you can see on the note cards, please take it back home. It's a gift for you. There's also a pledge card if you haven't made a donation to Federation. Of course, we appreciate your support. And we have the flowers as well if you would like to take a pop. So thank you again. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for
Thank
hosting
you.
us.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,